What are the current trends in fertility in 2024? That is going to be the topic of this live stream today. This is relevant whether you're trying naturally or you're planning to use interventions. And I'll be particularly focusing this on those who are over age 40 and trying to conceive, though it will be relevant for all ages. Please let me know if you are here with me live in the chat. Where are you joining me from? I'd love to see who's here and where you are. I'm Dr. Natalie Masson. I am in Southern California, San Diego, California, and I am a psychologist who was drawn to helping others on their fertility journey after my own struggles, trying to get pregnant with our second child when I was 45 years old. Many of you already know my story, but if you are new to my Fertility from the Soul channel, let me give you a little bit of an overview. I had my first child at 42, no problems. And then at 45, we were trying for our second, and it wasn't so easy. I went through 2 miscarriages back to back. It was a very low point energetically for me in my life. And I took a step back at that time to really tune into my intuition about what it was that I needed. And I took 3 months off to focus on really nourishing myself. And I was able to get pregnant again naturally, just as I was turning 46. And that was really the opening for me to say, what happened? What could be helpful to others? Because I felt there was something going on that needed to be shared, because what I went through on my way to having my second was so different from what so many others are encouraged to do when they're having troubles with fertility. So that motivated me to begin this Fertility from the Soul project, sharing with others now all around the world, meditations and health guidance and psychological insights about what you can do to improve your fertility, whether you're pursuing medical interventions or you're trying naturally, using donor eggs, all of the things that I've been teaching and learning as I go, I've been sharing to help people on all different paths. So if you rewind to when I kind of got started on focusing on fertility, that was when we were trying for our second, and she is now about to turn 8 years old. So a lot of time has passed. And so I've been working with others on this for about 7 years now. It's like the better part of a decade. And I've seen a lot of evolution in the field during this time. And so I thought it would be nice to have this session here today where I can share kind of my impressions about where the field is. And this is based a lot on input from audience like yourself, the women who are in my fertility coaching program, and I follow their stories in great detail and see what they're going through. And this is a global program, so I'm seeing pieces from all around the world. And I'm Google searching like all of you to see what's new, what's going on. And when I see interesting new things going on, I dig into it. I have experts come into my program to share more. So I'll be sharing kind of what I'm seeing from my vantage point about what's happening, what's new, what's not new, and maybe some pitfalls to avoid. So I'll be covering all these things throughout our live stream today. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat. I'll be checking the chat to see what's coming up. And I'll also be sharing about where I am with my programs and what from my programs might be helpful for you. Okay, I'm looking at the live stream in the chat here. I see Elizabeth from Nashville, Juliana, hi from UK, Aga from Belgium. Yes, and I got your, I hope you got the email that I sent you just the other day from your interest in the program. And somebody joins us, France, and Tanya. Hi, Tanya. Tanya's in the UK. Please let me know where you are joining us from. Chani from Israel. Hello, hello. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a little window into my world. It's been a while since I did a live stream on this channel. So just trying to reorient myself to the tech of this process and check my notes here. See where we are. Okay. Okay, so I have a lot of thoughts that I just sort of threw down on the page about the general trends that I'm seeing. So bear with me as I go through all this, and I think you're going to kind of see some themes come together in this picture. So across the board, not only in fertility, but in all of health, in all of everything, I feel like we're at a stage with access to information where we can learn so much just by going on the internet, between professional information that's being shared, forums where people are conversing about what they're finding. There is just so much available at our fingertips, right? To be able to tap in and read journals and have conversations. So in all areas of life, we are in an age of almost like infinite access to knowledge and information. And this can be very empowering because you no longer have to get an appointment and go wait 3 months to talk to someone and then copy all the notes down of what they said for half an hour. You can get most of the information already just sitting at home on your phone or your computer, and then you go to consultations to get a little more refined input specific to yourself. But there's just so much that it can be extremely empowering because we can educate ourselves on our own. It can also be very overwhelming because the amount of information that's available is really infinite. And you can go down rabbit holes and get lost in there and then not know how to prioritize what's there. So we have so much information, so many things we're learning, and it's so accessible, and that can be a double-edged sword. We also have an abundance of access to services and support that are offered online. So you no longer have to be in Germany to access that practitioner. Now we can access practitioners all around the world. We can send for testing all around the world. So we have so much more global access to services, to support. Again, it can be very empowering that if you live in a little town somewhere that doesn't have these practitioners, you can still find them on the internet. Again, it can also be overwhelming to have so many options. Another downside of all this online access is we can become saturated with too much time online. I think we hit a peak in 2020 to 2021 where we were so grateful to be able to access one another online and access resources and just connect with each other. But I think as we're heading into 2024, a lot of people have kind of reached a saturation point of how much online connecting and learning they can how much is really in balance. And I think a lot of us are trying to rebalance and discover that having real world 3D in-person engagement has a lot of benefits that we miss out on when we're online too much. The theme is abundance. There's also an abundance of testing and tracking options for understanding your fertility, tracking your cycle. Back when I was in the trenches myself with the fertility journey, there were a few blood tests you could get done and not much else. Now you don't even need to go to a lab. You can go on Amazon and order a bunch of kits to be sent to you. There are so many kinds of tests that you can run. There are so many gadgets that are being sold to help you track your cycle, to identify your fertile window. And we have the same thing. It can be very empowering to have access to so many options, yet it can also be overwhelming. How many different ovulation testing kit strategies do you want to test out? How many different temperature monitors do you want to test out? Like, how do you evaluate them? It used to be there was the temp drop. It monitored your temperature overnight. So now you don't have to use a thermometer. That was really cool. Now there's probably a dozen different overnight monitors. How do you research and compare all those to decide which one you're going to drop a few $100s on? And are these gadgets actually necessary? Do they give you an advantage over a $10 thermometer, for example? For those who are not familiar with this process, you can take your temperature every morning to see when your temperature goes up, which happens after ovulation. And that gives you some insight to when your fertile window is and many other things that could be affecting your health. So this is something that many of us didn't know about until we were trying to get pregnant and learned about it, but it's really something that can be empowering to understand as a female tracking your cycle. So there are lots of gadgets being sold to help you with that. They're connected to apps. You can see all this information. Which one's going to be most helpful? Which ones are really added value over, simply just taking your temperature, or maybe just listening to your own patterns without taking any temperature? How do we make these choices? And then some of the testing things that are out there are being promoted as helpful to know about, helpful for your fertility, but not all of them are even validated. Some of these areas are kind of experimental. So how much energy and resource do you put into all of these things that are being pushed out there that may or may not help you? There are newer technologies that are coming to the forefront that have potential for anti-aging impact, which is very compelling. If you are, 40 and over, if you're in your 30s and you don't know when you're going to want to be on the path to trying to conceive and you're concerned about preserving your fertility, we know that age has an impact on our fertility, and the impact is generally in the going down direction. So anything that we hear about that may help to extend that window, to reverse the impact of aging, we're curious about. One in particular that I've been paying a lot of attention to the last couple of years and learning more about is red light therapy. The technical term is photobiomodulation. And in the last few years, more and more devices have become available that are, there are very affordable ones in the under $100 range, and then there are semi-affordable ones in the several hundreds or a couple $1,000 range, but there's a lot that you can do on your own with this technology. And I've been favorably impressed with, just the, we aren't at the stage with red light therapy where we can specifically say, this is the impact it will have on your fertility. We're still connecting the dots. We see lab evidence that it boosts mitochondrial functioning. And we understand that mitochondrial functioning has to do with your egg quality. And so we're connecting the dots. If you can improve this, you can improve this, you can improve this. And we can see that red light therapy helps a lot with circulation, just oxygenating the whole body. And that can be helpful for your overall physical balance and fertility too. So for all these reasons, and because there seems to be so little downside to this, that is one that really does draw me as something that is worth considering, that's on the newer side, but it's still pretty experimental. Still don't know exactly what the best protocol, what the best devices are for that. Another technology that has been getting more attention is PRP, platelet-rich plasma treatments for ovarian rejuvenation. This has to do with drawing your own blood and taking elements out of your blood and injecting them into your ovaries or into your uterus. And that is seen to have some anti-aging effects. And they're hoping that egg quality will be improved. Now, I haven't dug into the specific research studies on this to see, how much confirmation there is that this works and how well it works. But it definitely sounds, it sounds compelling. It sounds like there's I haven't really read about the risks. If you know about this, this technology, feel free to share in the chat. But I've gotten the impression that it's using your own body's rejuvenating capacity and putting it in the area where we want it to where we think it may need the help. So those are a couple technologies I've heard more about. But again, it's all kind of experimental. And I think the ovarian rejuvenation that I've heard about is in the several $1,000s range, of $3,000 to $10,000 in US dollars. So that's something I'm curious to learn more about. Other things that I've seen getting more attention that maybe 5 to 7 years ago were kind of on the fringes. I would hear people talk about it just a little bit here and there, but now I'm hearing it from my members coming in. Many more people are getting assistance with this already by the time they come into my program, but we're looking at infections that could be impacting fertility on both the male and female side. Autoimmune conditions that could affect your fertility, that could contribute to miscarriage. And there are many protocols that are being used to counteract these autoimmune issues. You may hear terms like IVIG, intralipid infusions. And there's controversy around whether those are helpful or not. Those who are doing it believe it's helpful. And then there are other schools of medical practitioners who think that it's really not a thing and everybody's wasting their money. So I think that is all pretty experimental. I'm hearing more about microbiome testing, the microbiome, bacteria balance in your gut, in your vaginal area. There are tests to test these things. There are protocols to rebalance the microbiome, and these are all related to things like how well your body is going to absorb the nutrients that you're getting. Some people find that they're eating well, but they're not absorbing nutrients because their gut microbiome is off. And then when they improve that, a whole bunch of symptoms improve in their bodies. So these are things that I'm hearing people are pursuing more often, and I hear some positive outcomes from it. I'm also hearing more people paying attention to sperm issues. It used to be that I got the impression that it was much more often overlooked, and I still think it is overlooked often today, but I think more clinics and more practitioners are encouraging clients to look at the sperm issues earlier on and catching those earlier on. Supplements continue to be a big part of what people are incorporating in their regimens when they're on the fertility journey. And my impression is that there's a little more sophistication than maybe 8 years ago when things were super all over the place. And I would see people with 30 different supplements, just trying all different things. And what I have in my fertility coaching program is an extensive assessment form that people can fill out, and they can have it reviewed by me. And so I see like the whole list of supplements that people are taking. And in recent times, I'm seeing more orderly lists of supplements. Like, okay, there's certain ones that are very common, and it's not as much scatter across the board of things that people are just experimenting with. So I do encourage people to be knowledgeable about what they're taking and not just use themselves as a random test guinea pig for whatever you come across. I feel like there's a little more sophistication and uniformity of what people are trying to do with supplements these days. I also see a lot of people more and more using complementary treatments, acupuncture, naturopaths, nutritionists, functional practitioners, going beyond just the standard. I'll go to my general doctor, see if I have any obvious, deficiencies and medical illnesses to address. I've seen more use of a broader range of practitioners to explore things in different ways. And I think there's just more practitioners recognizing that fertility is an area where, really I think of it as fertility struggles. If you're trying to conceive and it's not happening, it could simply be a timing issue, but oftentimes you've already figured that out. And if there's still something going on, it suggests that there's something out of alignment in our system. And I think more practitioners in different areas are recognizing this as, okay, if you're having trouble getting pregnant, there's something at the root. And so they're coming at the issue with an eye for what's at the root of this problem in these complementary medical areas. So I feel like there are more and more experts in different areas who are choosing to learn more about fertility and become more specialized there so that they can help us more from their area of expertise. Okay, now in the IVF world, the trends that I'm seeing, these are just my impressions, listening very closely to the things that my members are experiencing as they go out and get different treatments. I'm hearing more fine-tuning of protocols. 8 or 10 years ago, I think it was more common that the clinic does what it does and you get what you get. And now it seems there's more tendency toward setting an expectation, especially for women who are over 40, like we're going to probably do several rounds, and egg banking is more common now, to say we're going to collect eggs over several rounds and then take the best of what we collect before we do a transfer. More fine-tuning of the protocols to stimulate ovulation to retrieve the eggs. So this is, I think, is a little bit more delicate thing, especially when you're getting into your 40s, where some of the standard protocols that are designed for women in their 20s and 30s are overstimulating and shut the ovaries down. So I'm seeing more awareness of this across clinics, particularly if you find a clinic that specializes in women in their 40s. I'm seeing more tendency to say, let's experiment with, okay, if that protocol didn't go well, what can we change to see what happens next. And then there's also more clinics I'm seeing coming up that are offering mini IVF and natural IVF. Now, some people who come in my program have never heard the terms mini IVF and natural IVF. So I don't think that it's universally a thing. There are some clinics who are thinking the more we can stimulate, the more eggs we can get. And then there are others who are saying, no, not for this age range. Sometimes less is more. And we only really need one egg to create a pregnancy, but we want it to be the best egg. And their assumption is that the body filters out and sends the best egg. So let's not overstimulate to get the most eggs. Let's take the egg that's coming that the body has already pre-filtered for us, pre-chosen, and just do a small amount of stimulation or no stimulation at all. And we're just going for one egg. So, and I have seen pregnancy in our community from someone, I think in her mid 40s, who did that natural or mini IVF, and they only had 1 or 2 eggs to transfer, and that was 1 or 2 embryos to transfer, and that was all it took. So there are some clinics who think it's a numbers game, and there are others who think it's a quality game. And so there's differences, but I'm hearing more of the movement toward favoring less stimulation, these mini natural IVFs. I don't actually know how common that is, but I'm hearing it discussed. I'm hearing it offered more awareness of that possibility. And I've also, so you might wonder, with some of these changes that have happened in the kind of fine-tuning and sophisticating things, especially in this age range, are outcomes improving? And I did a little Google search on that to see what the trends are. And one little statistic I pulled up was that outcomes have, in one study, it showed outcomes have improved over the last 10 years. And I think it might have been from 2011 to 2021, so not right up to 2024, but it takes a while to do research, right? So over that span of about 10 years, it was a 27% improvement in outcomes for women going through fertility treatments in the age range of 40 to 44. So I think it was a 10% success rate. So they went from maybe 7% to 10%. So we're seeing some movement in a positive direction for those seeking treatments. And probably, I'm guessing that may be due to an improved understanding of how we can fine-tune things. Okay, Natasha is asking, how many transfers does it take to finally get pregnant? Well, that is very much dependent on so many things. And that's one of the challenging things about going through fertility treatments is they can't guarantee anything. And you just want to be aware of what are the things that can help your situation and be prepared that we don't really know. We don't know what that path is going to look like. Aga, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Mini stimulation are more common indeed. I think I can put this on here. That's cool, right? Technology. Mini stimulation are more common indeed for women around and in their 40s, where AMH levels are significantly lower. Okay, so one of the things that they're thinking is AMH is a hormone that's measured that has some indication of what's happening in our ovarian response. I'll elaborate on that a little more in a bit. That's next on my list. And so they're using that as an indicator that maybe less stimulation could be better. Thank you for sharing that. I like to see AMH used in a constructive way like that. Maria is joining us from Greece. Hello, Maria. Okay, yeah, please feel free to share. I really want this to be not just me sharing my impressions. My impressions come from learning from all of you a lot of times. So you right now are those who are here, watching this are the ones who are out there living this right now and going through these things. So if there are things that you've been discovering as you're, seeking out services and, conclusions you've been coming to, please share in the chat what you've been experiencing as well. Okay. So another trend that I'm seeing and reading about, I'm reading about this more than seeing it, but it's for women who are younger, women who are in their 30s, let's say, more focus on being proactive about preserving fertility through egg freezing. And it looks like this is becoming a pretty big industry, actually, is to target women in their mid-reproductive age range and push them to being aware of egg freezing as a way of preserving fertility. So I think this is becoming a pretty big industry, actually, because it's an expensive procedure. And whenever there's something there that people might want that you can charge them for, you're going to see a whole bunch of business crop up around encouraging that kind of activity. So I think there's a little bit of a plus and a minus to this. The plus is that we have a technology that could potentially help people extend the length of time that they could use their own eggs. If you freeze your eggs when you're 25 or 30, and you're not ready to start a family till you're 45, then you're using your younger eggs. So there's definitely potential. When I was 35 and I was not in a forever relationship yet, I asked my doctor, should I consider freezing my eggs? I don't know where things are going for me. And she said, it's too experimental now. I don't really recommend it. You can do it, but we don't know if it's going to be useful at all. And she discouraged me from considering that. Nowadays, the position in the medical community has changed. It's, now we think that's a viable method. It's worth doing. It's kind of like insurance for your future. So on the plus side, I think that's empowering. On the minus side, I also think that it's creating a lot of anxiety for younger women who may go in for testing. Okay, so I think this brings me up to, okay, I'm going to go ahead and talk about AMH because this is all related. So people are being told that you can use these tests to measure your fertile potential and the age of your eggs, essentially like your reproductive age. And largely they're using AMH, anti-Mullerian hormone, as a measure of this. And this is a very flimsy piece of information. It's something that you can get through a blood test that's drawn any time of the month. And it's being used. I hear this all the time, all kinds of things being said about this. If you have low AMH, your eggs are no good, or you're almost out of eggs. TikTok could be any day now. Your last egg is going to release and you're done. I literally saw a woman at a fertility clinic presentation. I was kind of eavesdropping. I went to a local clinic that was, when I first started exploring, teaching more about fertility, I went to a local clinic's big seminar, and there was a woman in the front row who raised her hand and said, I'm 31 years old. I've got my fertility tested. My AMH is really low, which was 1 or something like that. It wasn't really low by really low standards that I've heard. And the doctor said, like, kind of pretty definitively, like, yeah, you're going to have trouble conceiving. And it turns out she wasn't even in a relationship where she was trying to conceive yet. She just one day wants to have a family. And she was absolutely in a panic over what she was going to do about the problem that she has, that she's infertile. And she's 31 years old. She's in a new relationship with a boyfriend. He was there to support her, but they're not even like, planning to do this together. He was just trying to support her through this difficulty. And so I think sometimes these tests are being used improperly. If you look at the research about AMH, it doesn't tell us, but it tells us how you might respond to ovarian stimulation. Like, lower AMH numbers means you won't get as many eggs when you do a stimulation. It doesn't mean you can't get pregnant naturally. In fact, it's not correlated at all with getting pregnant naturally. And I've done many live streams and educational videos you can see on my channel. Just search AMH. I've ranted about this over and over again, but no matter how much I rant about this, bad information keeps being spread about AMH. And it's terrifying when you hear that there's this number that's low that you're being told means you can't get pregnant with your own eggs. So this is one of the most abused lab tests that's being thrown around out there and misinterpreted by all kinds of practitioners. And so I think with all the technologies that we have, a lot of younger women are running to find out, to empower themselves with more knowledge, but the information that they're getting is not necessarily an accurate predictor. And if we didn't have any of that, a lot of them would never even know to be worried about it, and they were probably fine. So the research is very incomplete, and I think it's being this measure is being misused. I'm looking at the chat here. Hi, Angela, from Scotland. Do you think ovarian PRP is worth trying at age 47 for trying naturally? I'm starting to find reliable statistics on PRP. So, Angela, that is exactly the problem with all these newer things. If you're struggling to find reliable statistics, you've probably done more research on it than I have. You're motivated, right? You want to know, like, if I'm making this investment, is it worthwhile? And if you've asked the clinics that provide it for statistics, if you've Googled around and searched for statistics and you're not seeing it, it's probably because it's not available yet. It takes actually a long time for a protocol to be available and to be used and then to be tested, and then to be tested well, And the clinics that are doing it don't necessarily also do rigorous research, because rigorous research is very time consuming and resource intensive to do. So a lot of places focus on delivering the service versus doing research, because it's kind of hard to do both of those things. So the research is often lagging the delivery of services. And I think with things like PRP and red light therapy, we're in that zone where there are these options that are being proposed as potentially helpful, but we don't have enough solid data to know how helpful. So we're taking a little bit of a faith risk there to say, well, I'll give this a try. And so I usually look at it in terms of, what are the downsides? if there's not downsides, physical risks. And it's like, well, how much does it cost? And how much evidence is it that this could be helpful? So I wish I could answer that question more definitively for you, Angela, but my guess is that it's not quite known. I actually try to limit myself from going down too many of the rabbit holes to explore all the experimental stuff, because then I would spend all my time down there and not doing the things, helping people with the things that I have more confidence that we know a lot about that help. So I'll keep my ears open about PRP, but that's kind of where we are right now. Maria says they're awful at communicating that issue. I think you may be referring to the statistics or the AMH. Jessica, is there a specific day during the cycle to check for AMH? No, AMH can be tested on any day of the cycle. It's the day 3 hormones, LH, FSH, estradiol that are tested on day 3. Progesterone is tested 7 days after when you think you ovulated. Those are the only ones that I know of that need to be done at a certain time. Okay, so where am I in my notes here? I think people are getting unnecessarily alarmed by AMH, being told that it's a predictor of their fertile potential. If you know my story, I'm the poster child for low AMH natural conception. My AMH was 0.099, less than 0.1. And, I think in your earlier ages, it's in the maybe 3, 4, 5, and in your 40s, it's common for it to be 1 and under, and mine was way under 1. It naturally goes down with age. Does not mean that you don't have eggs. I continued to ovulate for 7 or 8 years after I had that low AMH. And I know how to test for ovulation. I continued to ovulate for about 8 years after I was found to have the low AMH. I don't know how long I had that low AMH because I wasn't checking before. So just keep that in mind. And I had a successful natural pregnancy with a good egg when I had that low AMH. Okay. Another trend I see in the fertility clinics, sadly, this one has not shifted in all the times that I've been hearing about people's experiences with fertility clinics. I never went to one myself. This is just what I've heard from other people, but the consistent trend is many clinics are very pessimistic for those in their 40s who are trying to get pregnant. And I hear this all the time in my community, this phrase, at your age, you need to know that your chances are less than fill in the blank percent. I'm not going to say it out loud because you don't need to hear it from one more person, but it'll be a number in the single digits. And it's put out there so strongly as if this is your chance. This is your individual chance of having a successful pregnancy. And my problem with that is it's not a number that's tailored to you. It's also based on their clinical outcomes using IVF with their patients. And maybe it's based on studies across IVF clinics. It's not based on individuals who are optimizing their health, who are getting support in many different ways, who have your characteristics. It's based on a broad range of people. So I really dislike that pessimistic, this is your chance. It's kind of become a joke in our community, at your age, to where a lot of my members in my fertility coaching program have learned to go into appointments when they anticipate that they might be talking to a practitioner who's going to tell them that and say, they start out like this. They say, look, I know what my age is, and I want to hear about these things that you may have to offer, or these you can test me on. I don't want to hear you tell me about percentages. Like lay it out at the beginning so that they're guiding what they want, because we know what the statistics are. You've already looked it up. You don't need to have somebody sit down with you and tell you during a consultation that they feel pessimistic for you. And in fact, I even hear this. Let me give you an example. Somebody that just a few days ago, may actually be here with us live, filled out the interest form. If you go, you can see in the link here below this video at the bottom, there's a link to my Conceive with Ease program, and you can join at any time. I just want you to fill out the interest form so I know a little bit about you, and we can talk about if this is a really good fit for you at this time. Somebody filled this out a few days ago, and she shared that she had her first pregnancy at 37, had a miscarriage, then a few rounds of IVF, and a take-home baby at age 38, 39, and then started trying to conceive baby number 2, had lots of, did some medicated rounds and wasn't successful. And the clinic told her that she needed donor eggs. So this is at age 40, almost 41. She's 40 years old, and she's being told that she needs donor eggs. And to me, that's just a little bit flabbergasting. Like, the only thing that she's been through, she had a successful pregnancy, and then she had a few rounds of attempts, sounds like medicated treatments, probably stimulating ovulation. And at age 40 is being told she needs donor eggs, like based on I don't know what. And guess what? Just recently she got pregnant, and unfortunately had another miscarriage. But she showed she's been using red light therapy for a couple months, and right before she got doing lots of meditations and hypnosis. So to say that you're not going to get pregnant with your own eggs, and to not offer any guidance on what you can do. Obviously, she could get pregnant because she did get pregnant naturally, and it appears most likely that there's an egg quality issue, and this is something that can be addressed. But look how quickly, I think my point is just how quickly the practitioner was ready to throw out the possibility of her first hope, which is to get pregnant with their own eggs. I feel kind of heartbroken when I see that happening, because when somebody in a position of knowledge and authority says, don't bother trying, it's very hard to have hope. And I just don't believe in being a hope buster when there really is so much potential, and there isn't evidence that in her case, there's no chance. I just have so much trouble with that. So I think a lot of practitioners, once they see the 4 at the start of the age, because they don't see it happen very much in their clinic, they just kind of shut down. And there can even be unfortunately, some other factors that encourage this kind of pessimism, because the clinics are rated based on their success rates. And if they discourage using your own eggs and get you to go to donor egg, they're more likely to have a success. So there's that kind of underlying incentive to not encourage you to try if they think the odds may be less in their favor. Looking at the chat here. Okay, this is going back a little bit. Oh, okay. If a woman is ready to try immediately, PRP could be a good solution because it responses within a 6-month period. Yes, thank you, Maria. So yeah, what I've read too is that it's like 6 to 9 months after the PRP is when they expect to see improved or ovarian functioning, improved egg quality. That is data from the doctor who invented the method. Okay, thank you, Maria, for sharing that. And all of these things, you can look up a lot of this information to find out what is known or believed so far. Okay, and Karina is resonating with this. It's so true. Just because we reach age 40, they put you down. I think it's extremely important, if you're in your 40s, to be in an age positive community where there aren't these attitudes, because that can buffer you from these kinds of attitudes. Are there any new studies regarding LIT? I have not explored this, and if you can tell us what that acronym is, I've heard it, but I haven't looked into that one. But let us know what it is so that we're on board. I think that's a newer, also pretty experimental thing. So usually the data is going to be kind of flimsy with these newer things. Okay. So I do see the clinics often pushing donor eggs sooner than I would suggest turning that corner. And there's nothing wrong with considering that path. That can be a beautiful pathway. Somebody in our community just went down that path and welcomed her baby last month. We're so excited for her. So this is not knocking that there are many pathways you can consider. It's just wanting to give people the best information and awareness of what might be reasonable for them to try. Okay. Another trend that I see is, much to my dismay, everybody is still using the term infertility all the time, everywhere, when they're talking about fertility struggles. And it may sound like wordsmithing, but I would much prefer that people talk about working on your fertility, exploring your fertility challenges, overcoming challenges, understanding the fertility struggles, understanding your fertile alignment, boosting your fertility. When we use the word infertility, I have trouble letting it out of my mouth. It sends out this connotation of not, that you can't, that it's done. It feels prescriptive and definitive, that you have an illness, you have a condition. And really, to me, so often that term is just tossed around. It's like, oh, you're dealing with infertility. It's like, no, you've not been determined not fertile. You're struggling to conceive right now, and we don't necessarily know. We're trying to bring things into alignment. I still see it all the time, even among all the people who are trying to be really helpful, so much in the messaging and the advertising. It's on the top of all these websites. We're helping you with your infertility. Just flip those words around. Be conscious of that and filter that out where you can. Okay, LIT, Maya is sharing with us pitch of education, lymphocyte immunization therapy from the 80s, I think. One bad study took it off the market in the US, but it's legal globally. It injects dad cells in mom to decrease immune response to him. Okay, so this would be in the case that we're suspecting that perhaps the embryo isn't implanting, or the sperm are being rejected, maybe because mom's body is recognizing the dad's material as unfriendly and is blocking it. So that is that, that sounds like there's some, rationale around that, if there's indication that that could be a problem. So thank you for sharing that. That is not something that I hear about often. I think I have heard about it, but I have not heard that. That one has not come up on my radar screen very much. Jessica says there is not a particular day for testing AMH, but it could fluctuate. Yes, it does fluctuate. I had mine tested 2 months in a row, and it was low the first time. It was even lower the next month, I think. And then a year later, it was still low, but around the same. But it does fluctuate. But it doesn't really matter to me because, again, it just doesn't mean much. So I see a lot of people say, "Can you help me raise my AMH?" And my reaction is, but why? Why are we even focusing on that number? Any other new immunology related research out there? Yeah, please share if you're aware of it. There's a lot of activity going on in the immunology field, and that's one of those rabbit holes that I'm reluctant to dive down because I feel like I'm just going to get lost down there. Leah is contributing. I'm 45. If I'm meant to bring a beautiful little soul into this life, I will. I stopped worrying. So many stories about women who get pregnant as soon as they surrender the worry and their fear. So this is a component that everybody's heard about this, right? Like, quit trying and it will happen. We've all heard stories where this has happened. They finally, they got on the adoption list. And then they got pregnant naturally. They went on vacation and then they got pregnant naturally. And as a psychologist, where I focus a lot on the mind-body connection and all the ways that stress can shut down things in your system, I absolutely agree that it's possible for this to have an influence. And the trick is finding out how to tap into that kind of that ease and faith. And that's where I've developed a lot of meditation programs that I offer to help you transition into that more easeful space. Okay, let me look. I see lots of stuff. Keep it coming in the chat. I'm going to make sure that I get through the other pointers that I have in my notes here. I do see a trend toward more coverage of IVF by work, also egg freezing by insurance, work plans. Some countries' governments are really supporting IVF process. So there's kind of generally more acceptance and support of getting medical assistance around fertility. I also feel like in general, there's a lack of solid teaching around the basics of understanding your cycle, timing your fertility, supporting your overall health. I feel like the clinics aren't specializing. They're not trying to help you get pregnant naturally. They're trying to help you when you haven't been able to get pregnant naturally, and they're just moving right into the next phase. And they don't teach you things about how to understand your own cycle for getting pregnant naturally, because that's not the thing they're selling. So I feel like this gets overlooked, the things that you could do to help yourself without needing intervention. And so on the one hand, I feel like there's a lack of basic education, standardized basic education, but there are now more and more products out there to help you do it on your own. But there's still this lack of standard education. It's like they're showing you how to buy their product and use their product for tracking, testing, all these things. But there isn't somebody kind of from an unbiased source saying, this is what you really need to know. These are the 15 products you could use. You don't need all 15 of them. Maybe you don't need any of them. There isn't sort of like this generic educational support. That's actually why I created a course I call Fertility 101 to help you understand the nuts and bolts of what you really need to know. And then from there, you can decide which products you want to use. And frankly, there's just a lot of opportunists out there trying to sell products that they suggest you need to, test this every month and test that every month. And pretty soon you've got $150 a month of tests you're doing just to know when your fertile window is. And that's ridiculous, because I can show you how to do it for $2 a month. You don't need all that stuff. But I'm not in the business of selling testing products, so I'm probably less biased about that. So the clinics are not helping you learn how to support your natural fertility, because that's not what they're selling. And then there's a whole bunch of product manufacturers that are trying to tell you that you need to do it their way. And often it's biased towards selling you more of their products. So I like to show you how you can do it. You don't need all those products for understanding your hormone balance and tracking your fertile window. You don't need to spend your energy and your money in that direction. It can be very simple. And I have links to that in the notes below this video, Fertility 101. I have a terrible marketing sales page because I just threw it together quickly and never came back to fix it up. So it looks like I don't know what I'm doing, but this area, it's really a solid informational course that can save you a lot of time and money. And even the thing that the fertility clinics sell, I think is kind of unnecessary. Is called a timed intercourse protocol. Well, where they'll watch your follicles grow and tell you when to go have intercourse. And I think they price that at $800 or $1,000. And really, you can do this on your own for $5. You don't need someone to tell you when it's time. You can do this very easily. And you can get that in my mini course on Fertility 101. It's not really mini. It's got a lot of information in it. And you can access that anytime. But because there's so much, I just feel like in our industry, there's so much push to sell you products and convince you that you need products because you need this information or you're running out of time, you need this intervention. I feel like a lot of the marketing, what you may see popping up in your social media feed, what you may be getting sent to your inbox, is pushing and pushing and pushing to feel urgency and to feel like you need more of this other stuff. And all of these things together, I feel, move you toward sometimes relying on others to tell you what you need and obscure your ability to be an expert on yourself and to, take in the information and then let yourself be guided by your own sense of where you are and what you need. So overall, I feel like some of the trends in the industry are pushing us toward feeling high anxiety, toward spending a lot of money, toward feeling a lot of pressure, and then having overwhelm over how to sort through all these things and a sense of urgency that we're running out of time. At the same time, there are so many resources available now that are really empowering and helpful. So I think that we're in this time of having so much access that's a really positive thing, more potential to learn and use different resources, gain more knowledge. But we're also targeted by a lot of pressure to be consumers of all these things and this constant reminder of, how much time do you have, things like that. So we're trying to balance how to sort through things, how to filter out the pressure so that we can be knowledgeable and empowered. So overall, I think there's so much improving. There's greater and greater potential to be more empowered about your fertility and about your options. But we kind of need to be savvy about how to filter through and decide what really applies to us, because it can be really easy to get overwhelmed, to go diving down rabbit holes, to live on the internet of fear and urgency, and trying to research what should we be doing next. So some of my recommendations are to consider the possibility of simplifying. Like, this is where we are in our whole world. Like, people are constantly trying to figure out, how do I declutter? We have so much consumerism with information as well, with self-care practices as well. Sometimes we want to take a step back, clear the clutter, and create some more quiet so that we can hear our inner voice, so that we can tune in and find a little more space so that we can be a better we can better monitor what we want to let in, what we want to implement, and not be in this frantic mode of overstimulation. Remember that the basics still matter. It doesn't matter how many fancy discoveries and tools and techniques are out there. The basics of tuning your own instrument, keeping your body is the vessel for growing this new life, keeping your body well tuned. So that means, you know, that the basics are feed yourself nourishing food, get rest, um, move your body, have an active lifestyle, have fun and play in your life, pay attention to your relationships. Oh, so often I see relationships getting crushed under the pressure of the fertility quest. And that's really sad, but that's what this industry and this process can tend to do. And that's obviously on so many levels not helpful. How do we nourish our relationships and bring light and play into our relationships? So we want to come back to the basics and don't let all the other stuff crowd that out, because ultimately that's probably 80% of what's important for our fertility. Maybe it's 95, maybe it's 100% for some individuals. And then sometimes you need something more. Sometimes you need an intervention. Sometimes you need to discover something that's going on. We don't always know what that is. So we do want to be knowledgeable about the breadth of things to consider, try to get comprehensive assessment from different angles. If you're already fine-tuning and balancing your general health and things aren't happening. And have a life. Don't let trying to conceive be your life, because that's not really a good life. You can focus on enriching and living your life, and that is actually a very important intervention for bringing balance to your system. So if you found yourself in that tunnel where TTC, trying to conceive, is your life, that's what you eat, breathe, sleep, and think about all the time, remember who you were before all of this happened, and see how you can reconnect with your whole person, and then have learning specifics about your fertility be a side dish that guides some of the choices that you're making. And also, I like to remind everyone that there are, if it depends on what your goal is exactly, but if your goal is to grow a family, there are children who need families too. And don't forget that possibility. I'm reminded all the time, because I donate to a local charity that supports foster children. In particular, they focus on bringing children, siblings together who have been separated in the foster care system. I mean, nothing is sadder than this. They don't have parents, and now they're separated from their siblings too, because they just can't get them into the same household. So you can even consider advancing to a sibling pair and having a complete family. And I'm not suggesting that that's an easy path, but parenting isn't an easy path anyway. There are so many challenges that you don't anticipate. It's a labor of love, and that love can be extended and experienced in many kinds of family arrangements. I offer those suggestions as ways to counter the common messaging that's coming at you often from the fertility industry. And if you enjoy this style of paying attention to your mind, your body, and your spirit, I hope that you'll, just continue to be part of my community, subscribe to this channel, join my newsletter list. That's where I send out information about new programs and offers and things like this live stream. I have free guides that you can download. I have small courses, Fertility 101. I have my Improving Egg Quality workshop, which actually has a massive information about red light therapy in it. Everything that I've learned about that, I just keep adding it in as a bonus to my Improving Egg Quality workshop. I recorded that workshop a couple years ago. I may do a refresher sometime soon, but really the information there is still the same information as far as what I think can make a biggest difference for improving egg quality. I do think egg quality is probably the most important factor that we need to be focusing on as we're moving into our later reproductive years. And so I have those smaller commitment courses that you can sign up for anytime. And I also have a very extensive fertility coaching program. Some of you may be watching who are already in the program. And if you're here and you're in the program, you're welcome to chime in. What is it that you find most helpful? I often speak to, I offer fertility office hours. I give lots of, one-on-one guidance to help you find things in the program, to help you figure out what is going to be most relevant to you for bringing your body into balance, calming your nervous system. And a lot of times the feedback that I get from my members is one of the most important things for them is the sense of community, being among others who are on a similar path. You don't have to explain why you're doing this at this age. You don't have to explain how hard this has been and what you're going to, people understand. So there's a very powerful element of being among others who really get it because they're on a similar path. So I want to tell you a little bit about what is happening and what is changing in the programs that I'm offering right now. And I see the chat. I'm going to come back to the chat. Keep the questions and comments coming. I just want to make sure I get through everything that was in my notes for this session. I know we're already past 1 hour here. The trends that I'm seeing inside my program is that, as always, people come into my program because they're drawn to what they've heard about my story and my focus on mind and body. So they really do come in open and motivated to taking deep care of their self-care. And I see in my program members are getting healthier all around. They're seeing massive changes to their overall quality of life. And I've been recording interviews with so many of our members who have been through so much and have gotten pregnant so that everybody can hear all the details of the things that they went through on their path. And it's just really inspiring. A big theme is not giving up, continuing to try different things and staying on the path and kind of trusting their intuition as they went through various twists and turns of their journey. And for some people come into the program after doing my 7-day chill out retreat, and a week later they're pregnant. That happens sometimes too. So I see people through long, extensive journeys. I see people turn around and all of a sudden, what just happened? I'm now seeing more and more members, because I've been doing this for 7-8 years now. I'm seeing more and more coming back to conceive their second child in my program. So these are often people who were told they didn't have a chance at their first. They had their first child is 2 years old, and now they're working on their second. So really, and they're in their 40s. I won't go into all the details of all those stories because they get jumbled in my mind. I start mixing stories together, but lots of examples, mid 40s. And yeah, there's so many stories coming to my mind of people coming in saying, I just don't know if this is ever going to happen for me. And now they're even working on their second child since that time. So that it kind of feels like a family in that way. I'm going to pause. The comments are coming that are catching my attention. Maria says, I'm so thankful for Natalie's programs and meditations. I use them all the time. They're so calming and relaxing. Thank you, Maria. Really nice to hear that. So yes, and I support people on whatever pathway resonates, whatever, because we don't know. Are you going to benefit from getting interventions? Do you want to continue trying naturally? And that's the path that you want to stay on. I really support whatever your intuition is telling you. So my plans for this program, it's called Conceive with Ease. In the past, it was the protocol that I would run the 7-day chill out retreat several times a year. And then after that, if you liked that, then you were invited in and the doors were closed except during that time. I'm shifting my approach this year, not because I didn't, I really liked that system of doing the cohort in the 7-day retreat, and then that big cohort would come in. But I'm finding that I don't have the time and space to give energy to the big cohort promotions. So I want to spend less time doing promotions and marketing and more time focusing on helping the people who have already found my work and want to do, want more support. So I'm letting go of the open, closed door rhythm, and I'm keeping doors open all the time. And I'm setting the program up so that you can come in anytime and you can access all those meditation sequences. You can go through the chill out retreat independently. You can access all of the meditations and all the resources coming into the program at any time. I just ask that you fill out an interest form, which will send me an email, and I'll get back to you to make sure that this is the right program for you. I don't want you coming in thinking it's going to be one thing and it's not that thing, and then you're disappointed. I want to make sure this is the right time and type of program for you. It has lots of self-guided material. So we're not going to be like, okay, for the next 6 months, you exactly do this, then this, then this. I want you to be able to pick what's helpful to you. And I'm still working on getting the best orientation process set up. It's kind of tricky. And I encourage people to just reach out directly to me and ask me, this is what I'm focusing on. Where should I go? And I will guide you. I want you to be successful in this program. And successful means not just, of course, I want everybody to have their take-home baby, but successful really means finding your sense of wholeness, finding your grounding, and loving yourself and having a wonderful life and finding the many ways that you can create that wonderful life. So I support people not only through fertility, not only through pregnancy and after. It's anything that you want. I support you wherever you want to be focusing, because it's really about finding your wholeness and creating a life that is absolutely beautiful for yourself. Tanya is sharing. Tanya's going to make me blush. If you're new here, Natalie is the real deal. She goes above and beyond for women trying to conceive with a heart of gold. Thank you so much, Tanya. Tanya is a regular in our live events. And when you hear her voice, you're going to fall in love with Tanya too. She has a heart of gold and is inspiring to all of us all the time. Thank you so much, Maria, and Katrine too. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm excited to be shifting to a format where people can join at any time. I'm going to be focusing less on marketing and promotions, and I'm hoping that helps me spread the word, because it's a noisy world. And I'm not going to be the person who shows up everywhere on social media, because I got my kids. They're growing up. Oh my gosh. My youngest is going to be 8. My oldest is 12. She's becoming a teenager. Life is flying by. So I need to always create space for that. We're homeschooling since the pandemic. So that's a thing. And I have an amazing group of over 100 women in my Conceive with Ease program. And I am totally dedicated to seeing all of them through to creating this beautiful pathway for themselves. I want to see many more take-home babies in 2024. And I want to really have space for working with those who are in my program. So less promoting, more doing. Help me spread the word if you know of people who may be interested in this style of guidance. And tomorrow, I'm going to do another live stream that I hope you'll come to. It's going to be a very special one on using your own voice in affirmations. And we have a member who is a singer and a voice coach, and is actually, she's going to share a little bit about her story. I'm not going to share her story about fertility because she's going to share that during the live stream. But there's going to be a lot of really fun stuff in that session. So that's going to be the same time as this one. And if you're watching on the replay, all of that will probably be up for you to watch anytime you wish. So let me go back now. Okay, I'm going to look back into my notes because I'm disorganized. I'm jumping all around. Other things I'm going to be doing this year. So with the open door for my program, also I just wanted to be so there's no pressure for you to join at a particular time. Join at the time that works for you. I think there's so much pressure already inherent in the fertility journey and in so much of the fertility marketing. I want this program to feel different, and you do it when it feels right for you. I am going to spend more energy giving individual support to those who are in my programs, because sometimes we need a little personalized touch to help find our way through situations. And I'm also this year going to be cleaning up all of my meditations and making them more accessible. So this is a process. I've created a lot of content over the last 6 or 7 years, and all the drafts of everything I've created are available to my members, but I haven't put them out more widely because I'm kind of a perfectionist, and I want them to be really good. I've actually ordered even a new microphone, which is still in the box. I haven't even taken it out, but I'm excited to up-level my recording quality. And I want to remaster all of my recordings and refine the ones that are just simply drafts that I pulled out of some of our live master classes, so that it's accessible. Again, coming back to this theme of we're so empowered with access to content. Even inside my program, we have tons of content, but it can be overwhelming if it's not presented and organized in a way that you can get to it. So that's part of my plan for 2024, is to step back from creating new stuff and refine stuff so that you can use it. There's so much really rich meditation material that I've created that I want to have more widely accessible. I'm going to go through the chat now in reverse order and see anything that I've missed. Juliana says, I'm really struggling with insomnia at the moment. I meditate lots and try to restore as much as possible. Do you think insomnia has a negative impact? Hard to know for sure. And Katrina's responding about something that has helped her, magnesium and chamomile. So, Juliana, it's definitely something that we want to look at and keep experimenting to figure out what is underneath it. The things that you've tried so far all sound very reasonable. There are a lot of things that could work into what's keeping us up. And the first things that I'm always looking at are the stress pieces. When the mind is not really feeling restful, the body has trouble resting too, and our mind is still active at night. So even though you're doing meditation and restoration, we can still look a little bit deeper to see if there's something that's keeping you up, and then physical things as well, and like Katrine is suggesting, you can experiment. Sometimes people find a slow release magnesium just does the trick for them. And of course, you want to look at how this interacts with other things. Okay, Juliana says, yes, you're using herbs at the moment. So we can definitely talk more about, I think it sometimes requires an individualized approach when you've tried a lot of things already, but reach out to me and we'll look into that more. Angie, I love all this info. I recently bought a Nito tracker, and I'm not convinced it's worth the investment. See, that's the thing about all these tracking things. I feel like none of them are needed. And if you look at my Fertility 101 course, I'll show you exactly how you can do all of the tracking you need without any of these devices. And I would suggest looking for, if you want to try devices, looking for ones that have a good return policy in case you decide it's not something you like. I do think that they can be helpful for collecting data overnight, if that's what you're talking about, temperature checking, so that you don't have to remember. But if you practice a little while, you can remember to pick up your thermometer in the morning, and it's no big deal. It just takes a little practice. Okay, asking about the time for the live session tomorrow. It's the same time as today's, and if you go to the live tab on my YouTube channel, it will show it in your time zone. So it's 1:30 p.m. Eastern time, 10:30 a.m. West Coast time, that's me, 6:30 p.m. UK time. Okay, I'm scanning back. Hi, everybody. I like red light therapy. I might travel to Sicily. Okay, yeah, so you can go to a clinic that offers it, and you can also get devices to use at home. So we have an extensive conversation about that in my Improving Egg Quality workshop, where I actually showed the different devices that I've been playing with and talked about the different ones on the market that you can get that makes it so you don't have to travel to a place that has it. Maria is responding to something. Tried to detox heavy metals and plastics from your system. And Natalie's program is fantastic for the mind, body, soul connection. Yes, that's an area that's talked a lot about by functional medicine practitioners. You may hear nutritionists, functional medicine doctors talking about detoxing, and there are tests for those things too. I've been curious about that area, have not looked into it very much, and always wonder about what impact those things can have. And you'll see people saying that different kinds of detoxes have helped them. I think it's a matter, again, of being knowledgeable about what kind of protocol you're signing up for and making sure that it has validity. Leah says, you're such an inspiration for all of us over 40. I purchased the Egg Quality course. Thank you. Is folic acid a no-no to take before conceiving? No. The only caveat about folic acid is that some people have the MTHFR gene issue and they don't process folic acid and they should be taking methylated folate. And about 20% of people have this gene mutation condition. And so generally, some people are leaning toward everybody should just take methylated folic acid. The other caveat about folic acid is oftentimes it's included in a multivitamin, but there are other vitamins, other minerals that interfere with the absorption of folic acid. So if you take it together with, I think it's vitamin C, or with a glass of orange juice, it's not going to be absorbed as well. So that's something to be aware of. Little caveats to be aware of with supplements, but there's no downside of doing it. It's usually included in prenatals for that reason, because folic acid is what you want to make sure you don't have a deficiency in, because that is connected to neural tube defects in early pregnancy. So that's the reason they always encourage it when you're trying to get pregnant and when you're pregnant. Is there a way to revive the menses when menopause has kicked in? Anything that might help with any of these anti-aging things could potentially help. There were that was actually how red light therapy was connected to fertility. Was accidentally, somebody was getting red light therapy for their back and started bleeding and came out of menopause because of the red light therapy. So I would say that it's possible. I don't think it's it's not super common. So I think it's rare. We're working, against the natural rhythm of the body. So there are experimental things that we can consider, but I can't say, okay, here's the protocol. Here's the protocol if you're in menopause. And menopause is defined as you haven't had a period for 2 years. So often I hear women in my community saying, I think I'm in menopause, and what actually they're in perimenopause. Their cycles are getting more irregular and things like that. And there are definitely instances of pregnancy happening during that perimenopause period. And occasionally there have been reports of getting pregnant after menopause, although that's usually, those are usually just, stories you hear once in a while in the news because they are unusual. Adithi, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing any names. We are also in our last round of IUI. I'm 38. My husband is 40, unexplained infertility. So there's that term that I really don't care for. Things aren't in alignment for you yet. You don't know why things aren't happening. And I really encourage taking that. That diagnosis isn't really a diagnosis. It's not a medical condition. They have to have codes to define things when you have a medical appointment. They have to put a code, and there's always the not otherwise specified kinds of codes. We don't know. It didn't fall into any category, so we're calling it didn't fall into a category. So please reframe that term for yourself, that it means they don't know. Whoever has assessed you doesn't know what's going on. And there could be many, many explanations for what's going on. Okay. Maria is reminding that the medication used in IVF is very burdening to a woman's health. It can be a negative, and that's often not presented by the fertility clinics. We did have somebody on the program who was 44, I believe, and she had been on, it can almost become addicting. Sometimes you can't get off the cycle of trying and trying and trying. And she'd done multiple IVF rounds, and I said, well, if that hasn't worked, maybe you should take a step back and try naturally. You are ovulating on your own, and maybe you should just give that a try. She said, oh, okay, I'll think about that. And then she went from one more round and had a negative reaction. It's called an ovarian torsion, which sometimes happens. It's not common, but sometimes it happens. And she lost an ovary as a result. And that could have been very damaging to her overall health had they not caught that. So she lost an ovary, and then she said, okay, wow, I'm done. I'm not doing any more IVF. And a couple months later, she was pregnant, and her pregnancy worked out. And she was, that was after a lot of treatments, and it wasn't ultimately, it wasn't what her body needed, and her body didn't respond well to that. And that's not to scare people from IVF, but to raise awareness that it's not without possible consequences. I am 41 now, and I have the knowledge I wish I had when I was 35. And that's a lot of what my mission is to get the information out there so that we can get it as soon as possible. But whenever you get it, it's better late than never, and you can go with the information that you have. So keep empowering yourself with information. Are women who have already given birth an advantage when they want to give birth at 44, 45 compared to never giving birth? I don't know exactly statistics on that. And there's probably statistics on that. And it's probably partly yes, because there's been because the body's done it once, we know that it can work. But I really wouldn't worry about those statistics. If you're gonna try your best. Right? I think that hunting around for the statistics is a little bit of it's a desire to control things and try to figure things out when so I'm reading as I'm thinking. Don't search too hard on get a general picture and let that be part of what you're aware of. Okay, Maya. Okay, oh my goodness, so many comments here I want to attend to, and I need to get going really soon. I'm 33, had 3 miscarriages in 1.5 years. All testing appears normal for both of us. Doctor says we're on our own unless we try IVF. For this, I would really, what the doctor's saying is kind of right. With their clinic, probably they don't have anything to support you besides IVF. That doesn't mean you can't get support in trying without IVF. You absolutely can. And I would love to go through my comprehensive assessment with you. And you can see some of these options on my website, on my resources page, to see what else might be going on that hasn't been looked at. Most doctors look at the things that are their specialty. They don't look at the things that aren't their specialty. They can only cover so many things, but to suggest that there's no other options for you is not true. There may not be options with their support. Okay, I think I've covered most of the comments. Feel free to continue posting comments on this live stream. This replay will be available, and I'll continue to come back and look at the comments, and join my newsletter if you'd like to hear about more things that are going on. And I'm going to hold hope for all of you here who are here with me live, who are watching on the replay, that 2024 is going to be an amazing year of new creation of all kinds. And I love hearing all of your stories unfold. Thank you for being a part of my audience, and I wish you all well. Bye. Bye-bye.